Imagine the scene. It is Athens, 472 BC. The city is still rebuilding. The wounds of a great war are fresh. Men in the audience fought in this war. They saw their homes threatened. They saw foreign ships fill their seas. Now, on a simple stage, a story unfolds. It is not a myth of ancient gods or legendary heroes. It is their own history. Aeschylus, a soldier himself, brings this history to life. He presents the Persians. This is no ordinary play. It is a living document. It is a memorial etched not in stone, but in words and performance. It is the oldest surviving play in Western history, a true miracle of preservation. The play is unique. It tells the story of the Greco-Persian Wars, but it does not tell it from the Greek perspective. We are not in Athens celebrating a victory. We are in Susa, the heart of the Persian Empire. We are with the enemy. We feel their anxiety. We share their dread. Aeschylus makes a bold choice. He asks his fellow Athenians to look upon their defeated foes not with scorn, but with understanding. He wants them to see the universal tragedy of war. The play begins not with battles, but with waiting. The Persian court is shrouded in a heavy silence, waiting for news of their king Xerxes and his massive army. This setting creates an incredible tension. The audience in Athens already knows the outcome. They know that the Persian fleet was shattered at the Battle of Salamis. They know that Xerxes' grand invasion failed. But the characters on stage do not. They are suspended in a state of hopeful ignorance. This gap between what the audience knows and what the characters hope for is the source of the play's immense dramatic power. It is a masterstroke of theatrical irony. We watch the Persian queen and her counselors cling to dreams of glory, all the while knowing the nightmare that awaits them. The air is thick with foreboding. Aeschylus uses this historical framework to explore something much deeper than a single military victory. He is not simply waving a flag. He is asking profound questions about power, arrogance, and the human condition. Why do great empires fall? What is the true cost of ambition? How do we view those we call enemy? By setting his tragedy in the court of the vanquished, he forces his audience to confront these questions in a deeply personal way. The play is not just a retelling of a battle. It is a meditation on the very nature of conflict and the sorrow it leaves in its wake, a sorrow that touches victor and vanquished alike. The stage is set in the Persian capital. The elders of the court form the chorus. They are old men, left behind to govern while the young have gone to war. Their opening words are filled with a deep, gnawing anxiety. They sing of the golden splendor of the Persian host. They list the names of the great commanders. They describe the vast numbers of men, a river of humanity flowing west to conquer Greece. Yet, beneath this veneer of pride, there is a trembling fear. No word has come from the army. The silence is deafening. It is a silence that speaks of disaster. Their dreams are troubled. Dark omens haunt their waking thoughts. Into this atmosphere of dread comes Queen Atossa. She is the mother of King Xerxes and the widow of the great King Darius. She too is plagued by nightmares. She tells the chorus of a disturbing vision. In her dream she saw two women. One was dressed in Persian robes, the other in Greek attire. They began to quarrel, and her son Xerxes yoked them both to his chariot. The Greek woman struggled violently and broke free, shattering the chariot. Xerxes fell to the ground, and his father Darius appeared, pitying his fallen son. The dream is a powerful symbol, a prophecy of the coming catastrophe that the audience knows has already happened. Desperate for answers, Atossa and the chorus decide to perform a sacred ritual. They pour libations and make offerings at the tomb of the former king, Darius the Great. They summon his spirit, hoping his wisdom can pierce the veil of uncertainty. Their chants are a plea, a desperate call to the past for guidance. The tension builds. The stage becomes a conduit between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. It is a moment of pure theatrical magic, where the spiritual and the political collide. They're not just seeking news, they are seeking meaning in the face of potential chaos. The ghost of Darius rises from his tomb. His presence is solemn and sorrowful. He does not bring comfort. Instead, he confirms their worst fears. He speaks of the folly of his son, Xerxes. He explains that the defeat was not merely a military failure, but a punishment from the gods. Xerxes, in his arrogance, had tried to defy the natural order. He had bridged the Hellespont, lashing the sacred waters like a master whipping a slave. This act of hubris angered the gods and sealed Persia's fate. Darius's prophecy is a verdict. It frames the entire disaster not as a simple loss, but as a consequence of profound moral and spiritual transgression. Hubris is the central pillar of this great tragedy. It is the fatal flaw that brings Xerxes and his empire to their knees. The ghost of Darius explains it clearly. It was not the strength of the Greek arms alone that defeated Persia. It was Xerxes' own monumental pride. He was a mortal man who thought he could command the elements. He ordered the Hellespont, a sacred body of water, to be whipped when a storm damaged his first bridge of boats. He then built another, literally shackling the sea. This was an act of supreme arrogance, a man trying to impose his will upon the domain of the gods. The gods do not tolerate such challenges. The chorus and Atossa also speak of this hubris, even before they know the full extent of the disaster. They describe the sheer scale of the invasion force. It was an army so large it was said to drink rivers dry as it passed. This was not just a military campaign, it was an attempt to overwhelm the world with Persian might. The glitter of gold, the endless ranks of soldiers, the dozens of allied nations, all of it was designed to inspire awe and terror. But Aeschylus presents this not as strength, but as a dangerous excess. It is the pride of a young king trying to outdo his father, a reckless ambition that ignores all warnings and scorns all limits. This theme of hubris is deeply connected to the Greek worldview. For them, balance and moderation were key virtues. The concept of know thyself meant understanding your place in the cosmos as a mortal. Xerxes failed this fundamental test. He blurred the line between man and God. He believed his wealth and power made him invincible, capable of conquering both land and sea. The play serves as a powerful lesson to the Athenian audience. It warns them that even in their moment of victory, they must remain humble. The same pride that destroyed the Persians could one day destroy them too. The consequences of this hubris are devastating. It leads to the destruction of a generation of young men. It brings shame and ruin upon a once glorious empire. When Xerxes finally appears at the end of the play, he is a broken figure. His royal robes are torn. He is the living embodiment of his shattered pride. The contrast between the magnificent king who set out for conquest and the wretched man who returns is stark. Aeschylus shows that hubris is not an abstract concept. It has real, tangible and heartbreaking consequences. It is a poison that rots an empire from the head down, leaving nothing but grief and desolation behind. Atossa, the Queen Mother, is the emotional heart of the play. She is more than just a symbol of the Persian state. She is a mother consumed by worry for her son. Her presence on stage brings a powerful human dimension to the unfolding political disaster. Before any news arrives, she is already unsettled, her sleep filled with terrifying visions of her son's downfall. Her fear is palpable. She represents the anxiety of every parent who has sent a child to war, a universal dread that transcends culture and time. She is a queen, yes, but her first identity in this play is that of a mother. Her interactions with the chorus reveal her deep-seated fears. She asks them questions about Athens. Where is this city? What kind of power do they have? Are they skilled with the bow? Who is their master? The chorus tells her the Athenians are slaves to no man. This answer highlights a fundamental difference between the Persian and Greek worlds, one an empire ruled by a single autocrat, the other a collection of free citizens. Atossa's questions are not just for information. They are an attempt to understand the force that is challenging her son's seemingly limitless power. She senses a different kind of strength, one not measured in numbers or gold. When the messenger finally arrives with the terrible news of the defeat at Salamis, Atossa's reaction is one of profound grief. Her first thoughts are for the loss of life, for the men who will never return home. But her sorrow is complex. It is the grief of a mother for her child's failure and humiliation. It is the grief of a queen for her empire's ruin. It is the grief of a widow for the legacy of her husband Darius, which her son has now squandered. Her lament is a powerful expression of personal and national tragedy, intertwined and inseparable. She carries the weight of it all on her shoulders. Even in her grief, Atossa maintains her royal dignity. She does not collapse into hysterics. Instead, she seeks to understand the cause of the disaster and begins the process of dealing with its aftermath. It is she who initiates the summoning of Darius's ghost, seeking wisdom from the past, and it is she who prepares to meet her broken son, Xerxes, at the play's end, offering what little comfort she can. Atossa is a figure of immense strength and tragedy. She embodies the suffering of the Persian people, making their loss not an abstract political event, but a deeply felt human experience. Her character is a testament to Aeschylus's profound empathy. The arrival of the messenger is the play's pivotal moment. He is the first eyewitness to return from the front. The court has been suspended in a state of anxious ignorance, but his appearance, well, it shatters the silence. He enters, breathless and distraught, a harbinger of doom. Honestly, before he even speaks a full sentence, his demeanor tells the story. The hope that the chorus and Atossa have been clinging to just evaporates in an instant. The messenger's role is to transform their vague fears into a concrete, horrifying reality. He is the voice of truth, and the truth he carries is brutal and unforgiving. His speech is, one of the most powerful and graphic accounts of battle in all of ancient literature. He does not speak in generalities. Instead, he paints a vivid, terrifying picture of the slaughter at Salamis. He begins by confirming the worst. The entire army is lost. Then he proceeds to list the names of the noble commanders who have fallen, each name a blow to the heart of the Persian court. He describes the chaos of the naval battle, the narrow straits packed with ships, the Persian vessels unable to maneuver, crashing into one another. He speaks of the sea turning red with blood, the shores of the islands littered with the bodies of the dead. The messenger's words create an unforgettable image of the cost of war. He describes how the Greeks, with their smaller, more agile fleet, outmaneuvered the massive Persian armada. He recounts the Greek battle cry, a song of freedom that struck terror into the Persian sailors. Then came the sound of splintering wood and the screams of dying men. He tells of how the surviving Persians who washed ashore on the island of Psytaleia were systematically hunted down and killed by the Greeks. It is a merciless account. There is no glory here, only carnage and human suffering on an epic scale. Aeschylus uses this speech to force his Athenian audience to confront the grim reality of the victory they were celebrating. They may have won the battle, but the messenger's tale makes them witness the sheer horror of what that victory entailed. It is a deliberate choice to focus on the suffering of the defeated. By detailing the Persian losses so graphically, Aeschylus strips the war of its heroic glamour. He shows that behind every strategic triumph lies a mountain of corpses and an ocean of grief. The messenger's speech is a powerful anti-war statement, a reminder that the price of conflict is always paid in human lives. In the world of Greek tragedy, the gods are ever present. Their will shapes the destinies of mortals, and their justice is inescapable. In the Persians, divine justice is a central theme, explaining why the mighty Persian Empire suffered such a catastrophic defeat. The ghost of King Darius makes this explicit. He tells Atossa and the chorus that the disaster was not a simple stroke of bad luck or a failure of military strategy. It was the direct result of the gods' anger. Xerxes' hubris, his arrogant attempt to conquer nature and defy the divine order, had provoked their wrath. The defeat was a punishment. The play presents a clear moral universe where actions have divine consequences. Xerxes' act of bridging the Hellespont was seen as a violation of the sacred boundary between Asia and Europe, an affront to the god Poseidon. Furthermore, the Persian forces had sacked Greek cities and burned their temples, including the sacred shrines on the Acropolis of Athens. The messenger mentions this, and Darius confirms that these acts of sacrilege were a grave offense. The gods, in turn, aided the Greeks and ensured the destruction of the Persian host. The ruin of the army is presented as righteous payback for their impiety. This concept of divine justice served as a powerful message for the Athenian audience. It framed their victory not just as a military achievement, but as a sign of divine favor. They had been the instrument of the gods' will, defending their homeland and punishing the hubris of the invaders. This would have been a source of immense civic and religious pride. However, it also contained a warning. The gods punish hubris and sacrilege in anyone, not just Persians. The play subtly cautions the victorious Athenians to remain pious and humble, lest they too one day overstep their bounds and face a similar divine retribution. The fate of the Persians, therefore, becomes a cautionary tale. It is a story about the limits of human power and the necessity of respecting the divine order. When Xerxes returns, defeated and shamed, he is a living testament to this truth. He is a king who thought he could command the world, but was ultimately brought low by forces far greater than himself. The tragedy is not just that he lost a war, but that he failed to understand his place in the cosmos. The gods in Aeschylus's play are not arbitrary tyrants. They are the ultimate guardians of balance and order in the universe. Perhaps the most remarkable and enduring quality of the Persians is its profound empathy for the defeated enemy. Aeschylus, a veteran of the very wars he depicts, chose not to write a jingoistic celebration of Greek victory. He did not create Persian characters who were monstrous or cartoonish villains. Instead, he presented them as complex, suffering human beings. He invites his audience, the citizens of Athens, to step into the shoes of their former foes and to feel the sting of their loss. This was a radical and courageous act of imagination, especially so soon after the conflict had ended. The entire play is structured to generate this empathy. By setting the action in the Persian court, we experience the events from their perspective. We share their agonizing wait for news. We feel the crushing weight of the messenger's report. We listen to the sorrowful lament of Queen Atossa, a mother grieving for her son and her people. We witness the shame and despair of the once mighty King Xerxes. The focus is relentlessly on the human cost of the war, on the grief, fear and humiliation of the losing side. The Greek victors are barely seen. They exist primarily as the unstoppable force that brings about this tragedy. This humanization of the enemy is a powerful tool. It forces the audience to look beyond the simple labels of us and them. The Persians on stage are not just faceless invaders. They are parents, wives and elders mourning the loss of a generation of young men. Their grief is presented as being just as valid and as deep as any Greeks would be. The final scene, a shared lament between Xerxes and the chorus, is a symphony of sorrow. They recount the names of the dead, mourn their broken nation and weep together. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated human suffering designed to evoke pity and understanding. This act of empathy is what elevates the Persians from a historical chronicle to a timeless work of art. It carries a powerful anti-war message. Aeschylus suggests that in any conflict there are no true winners, only different degrees of suffering. By forcing his audience to feel for the Persians, he underscores the universal tragedy of war itself. He argues that compassion and understanding are essential human values, even, and perhaps especially, in the aftermath of a bitter conflict. This was a stunningly sophisticated and humane message to present to a victorious city, and it remains the play's most profound legacy. As the oldest surviving play in the Western canon, The Persians holds a unique and monumental place in cultural history. It is our first direct link to the birth of European theatre. Every tragedy that followed, from Sophocles and Euripides to Shakespeare and beyond, stands on the foundation that Aeschylus laid. This play is a starting point, a dramatic year zero. It demonstrates the essential elements that would come to define tragedy for millennia: a high-stakes plot, a focus on human suffering, the exploration of profound themes like fate and justice, and the use of a chorus to comment on the action. Its significance also lies in its pioneering use of history as a subject for drama. Before the Persians, Greek tragedies primarily drew their stories from the world of myth and epic poetry. The Trojan War, the House of Thebes. Aeschylus took the radical step of putting recent lived history on the stage. This opened up a new possibility for theatre, the power to directly engage with the political and social issues of its time. The play was not just entertainment, it was a form of civic discourse, a way for the community to process a traumatic and transformative national experience together in a public forum. The influence of the Persians can be seen in its structure and dramatic devices. The figure of the messenger, who enters to deliver a long, detailed speech describing offstage events, became a standard convention in Greek tragedy. This allowed playwrights to depict large-scale events like battles without needing to stage them, focusing instead on the emotional reaction to the news. The use of a ghost, the spirit of Darius, to provide wisdom and prophecy also became a recurring motif in later drama, most famously in Shakespeare's Hamlet. Aeschylus was not just telling a story, he was inventing the language of theatre. The play's survival itself is a near miracle. For over 2.5 millennia it has been copied, translated and preserved, passing through the hands of countless scribes and scholars. It is a fragile echo from a distant world, offering us an unparalleled glimpse into the mindset of 5th century Athens. It shows us what they valued, what they feared, and how they saw their place in the world. Studying the Persians is not just about reading an old play. It is about listening to one of the first and most powerful voices of Western civilization. A voice that still speaks to us with astonishing clarity and relevance across the centuries. More than 2,500 years after it was first performed, Aeschylus's The Persians remains shockingly relevant. Its themes are not confined to the ancient world, they resonate deeply in our own. The play is a timeless warning against the dangers of imperial overreach and the arrogance of power. In an age where nations still engage in wars of choice, believing their technological or military superiority makes them invincible, the story of Xerxes serves as a potent cautionary tale. It reminds us that pride often comes before a fall, and that underestimating an opponent or disrespecting other cultures can lead to catastrophic failure. The play's exploration of the cost of war has lost none of its power. We are constantly bombarded with media coverage of conflicts around the globe, but often from a sanitized distance. Aeschylus pulls us directly into the heart of the suffering. The messenger's graphic account of the slaughter and Queen Atossa's profound grief force us to confront the brutal human reality of war. The play challenges us to look beyond statistics and strategic objectives, and to see the shattered lives, the mourning families, and the national trauma that are the true legacy of any armed conflict. It is a message that pacifists and generals alike should heed. Furthermore, the play's radical empathy for the other is a lesson our modern world desperately needs. In an era often defined by polarized politics, nationalism, and the demonization of those with different beliefs or backgrounds, the Persians makes a powerful case for our shared humanity. Aeschylus asks us to find the humanity in our adversaries, to understand their perspective, and to recognize that their capacity for suffering is no different from our own. This call for compassion and understanding across cultural and political divides is perhaps the play's most urgent and enduring message for the 21st century. Ultimately, The Persians is a mirror held up to any society that believes itself to be at the height of its power. It asks us to look at our leaders and at ourselves. Do we display the hubris of Xerxes? Do we listen to voices of caution and restraint? Do we understand the true cost of our ambitions? The play is not merely a historical artifact. It is a living piece of wisdom, a dramatic masterpiece that continues to challenge, to warn and to move us. It reminds us that the fundamental struggles of power, justice and empathy are as old as civilization itself, and the lessons of the past are always relevant to the present.